Let me conjure a vision for you, a vision of the United Kingdom in the year 2025. We have become Europe's foremost knowledge-based economy. We lead the world in biotech, law, education, the audiovisual sector, financial services, and software. New industries from 3D printing to driverless cars have sprung up around the country. Older industries, too, have revived as energy prices have fallen back to global levels. Steel, cement, paper, plastics, and ceramics producers have become competitive again. We stand at the centre of a global trading nexus, having opened our markets to the chief exports of developing nations. We are members of EFTA and NAFTA. Indeed, our dual membership has catalysed a progressive fusion of those two great classical free trade areas, and we simultaneously enjoy comprehensive free trade with the EU, though we no longer have a say in setting its standards. In many areas, whether because of economies of scale or because rules are largely set at a global level, the UK and the EU continue to adopt the same technical standards. But we are now free to disapply those regulations where the cost of compliance outweighs the benefits. The EU's Clinical Trials Directive, for example, has wiped out a great deal of medical investigation in Britain. Outside it, we again lead the world in clinical research. Opting out of the EU's e-commerce restrictions has turned Hoxton into the software capital of the world. Britain is no longer hampered by Brussels' restrictions on sales, promotions, and e-commerce. Other EU regulations, often little known, had caused enormous damage. The REACH directive, limiting the import of chemical products, had imposed huge costs on manufacturers. The bans on vitamin supplements and herbal remedies had closed down many health shops. London's art market had been brutalised by EU rules on VAT and retrospective taxation. All these sectors have revived. Financial services are booming, not only in London, but in Birmingham, Leeds, and Edinburgh too. Eurocrats had never much liked the city, which they regarded as parasitical. Before Brexit, they targeted London with regulations that were not simply harmful, but, in some cases, downright malicious. The Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive, the ban on short selling, the financial transactions tax, the restrictions on insurance. After Britain left, the EU's regulations became even more heavy-handed, driving more exiles from Paris, Frankfurt, and Milan to London. No other European city could hope to compete. Their high rates of personal and corporate taxation, restrictive employment practices, and lack of support services left London unchallenged. Other British cities, too, have boomed, not least Liverpool and Glasgow, which had found themselves on the wrong side of the country when the EEC's Common External Tariff was phased in the 1970s. In 2016, the viability of our commercial ports had been threatened by the EU's Ports Services Directive. Aimed at the large, state-funded ports on the continent, such as Rotterdam, Hamburg, and Antwerp, that law would have done huge damage to Britain's smaller and private commercial ports. With that threat lifted, the UK has again become a centre for world shipping. After we left the Common Agricultural Policy, we were able to subsidise our own farmers rather than their continental competitors. Instead of paying £4.6 billion a year into the cap and getting £2.9 billion back, we could afford to support our producers more generously. British farmers, always more open to technology than their EU rivals, now export all over the world. Meanwhile, pulling out of the Common Fisheries Policy meant we could restore control of our territorial waters out to 200 miles or the median line. For the first time in 30 years, our fish stocks are a great renewable resource. Shale oil and gas came on tap almost providentially, just as the North Sea reserves were depleting, with most of the infrastructure already in place. Outside the EU, we have been able to augment this bonanza by buying cheap Chinese solar panels. In consequence, our fuel bills have tumbled, boosting productivity, increasing household incomes, and stimulating the entire economy. Our universities are flourishing, taking the world's brightest students and, where appropriate, charging accordingly. Their revenues, in consequence, are rising, while they continue to collaborate with research centres in Europe and around the world. The number of student visas granted each year is decided by MPs who, now that they no longer need to worry about unlimited EU migration, can afford to take a long-term view. Parliament also sets the number of work permits, the number of refugee places, and the terms of family reunification. A permit-based immigration system invites the world's top talent, and the consequent sense of having had to win a place competitively means that new settlers arrive with commensurate pride and patriotism. Unsurprisingly, some other European countries have opted to copy Britain's deal with the EU, based as it is upon a common market, rather than a common government. Some of these countries were drawn from EFTA. Norway, Switzerland, and Iceland all joined us in the new arrangement with the EU, known as the Continental Partnership. Some came from further afield: Serbia, Turkey, Ukraine. Some followed us out of the EU: Ireland, Denmark, and the Netherlands. The United Kingdom now leads a 22-state bloc that forms a free trade area with the EU, but remains outside its political structures. For their part, the EU 24 have continued to push ahead with economic, military, and political amalgamation. They now have a common police force and army, a pan-European income tax, and a harmonised system of social security. The remaining 24 nations are, to all intents and purposes, ceasing to exist as independent states, instead becoming units within a federal Europe. Some in the EU resent the arrangement. They protest that Britain has become Hong Kong to their China, Singapore to their Malaysia, a competitive, deregulated offshore economy that attracts investment through lower taxes and less burdensome rules. Others recognise that Britain's openness to global trade benefits the entire region. A prosperous neighbour is a better customer, and the UK remains by far the EU's single largest export destination. In any case, a measure of competition is in everyone's interests. Just as the United States and Canada have settled naturally into a working relationship, so close that it is rarely questioned, so the EU and Britain take cooperation for granted.